Good afternoon, Professor. Today, the topic I would like to discuss is GDP and all the forms that I know of. What is GDP? First, GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services. So, meaning that it only accounts for the total good. Like if we had a car, for example, it wouldn't account for the steering wheel, the tires, the rims. It would only account for the total market value of the final good, the total price that is posted on the sticker of the car. Next, we have GDP only accounts for what is inside the country's border. So this means that it accounts for everything inside the country's border. So let's say if we have a foreign producer, like let's say Switzerland, England, inside the U.S., uh, that would count towards the U.S.'s economic GDP. And then GDP only accounts for a certain amount of time periods. GDP can account for long periods of time, but it also accounts for short periods of time, but it does not account for all of time together, like as long as GDP has been around. Like, let's say, for example, last year it only accounted for the first 4 quarters of 2024, and we can only let it account for the first 4 quarters of 2024, or we could also move it to the first quarter of 2025 too. And then GDP allows economists like us to determine the health of the economy. GDP is a good indicator of where our economy is at. If it's low, we should probably get it up because that means that our GDP per capita is low, which means that our income is low, and we should probably get it up to have a better form of life in our country. So GDP can fluctuate a lot because at the moment in 2025, we could see that it has fallen 0.5%, which is quite the opposite of what it was like in 2024. Because in 2024, in the fourth quarter, it was up by 2.4%. It had increased, which means we were doing good. And we could see on the graph right here, provided by the BEA.gov with the link right here, we could see that in quarter four of 2023, we were up. In quarter one of 2024, we were also up all the way up until quarter four when we were up 2.4%. And then in 2025, we could see in the first quarter that it has dropped, which means it can change pretty drastically from one quarter to another. So, this fluctuation that we see, it really just shows how the economy is at a downfall, it's at a slowdown, how it's not doing the best right now, and we should probably do something to fix it. All right, the different types of GDP. All right, so first we have real GDP, which is a form of measurement used to measure the total value of all goods and services produced in a country's border. All right, so this means that as long as it's in a country's border, it counts towards the GDP of the country. So it doesn't matter where it originates from. Like if it's a Japanese manufacturer in the United States, it counts towards the United States GDP. And then next we have nominal GDP, which is quite the opposite of what real GDP is. Because nominal GDP, as it's stated right here, a form of measurement that is used to measure all goods and services in an economy. So this means that as long as it's in the economy, for example, if it's in the U.S. economy, then it counts towards the U.S. economy no matter where it is located. Like, let's say if it's in Germany, for instance, we have a manufacturer located in Germany, it still counts towards the U.S. economy. And then we have GDP per capita. And this is basically the total amount of value each person puts out per year. So this means that it's just like the income of the everyday person. So like everybody's income. So examples of GDPs. So first, we have real GDP, which is used to find final products of all goods and services. An example of this can be seen in like a family-owned market. This is like a small example. At the end of the day, they have to take track of all the items they sold to know how much profits they've made and how much they can put back into their company. So this is, in my opinion, I feel like it's a really good example because it's like a smaller scale and you don't have to think of it as big. You just have to think of it as like the small family-owned market having to take notes of everything they've sold. All right, so an example of nominal GDP can be seen in the current U.S. economy. This is because the current U.S. economy has a bunch of people who produce money outside of its borders. So they have to account for everything that is being made in their economy so they can tax properly. And they tax properly using tax treaties, but they still have to account for stuff that is made outside of their borders. So that is what nominal GDP is for. Okay, finally, an example of GDP per capita. So, an example of GDP per capita is an everyday working person. Because really, everything that GDP per capita accounts for is just the income of the everyday person, the employed people. So, it just finds out how much they make so they could be taxed. Okay, next, now we have the formulas of the GDPs. So, the formula for real GDP is the nominal GDP divided by GDP per index, which is basically how the price moves up and down. So we're trying to get to not get confused while calculating for real GDP, we have to find a fixed price in the price index, and then we multiply that by 100 to get our real GDP. Next, we're calculating for nominal GDP, which is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So these letters, what they signify is C is equal to consumer spendings, I is equal to business investments, uh, G is equal to government spendings, X is equal to net exports, and M is equal to imports. And that is how we calculate for nominal GDP. And then GDP per capita is quite simple compared to the other ones. It's real GDP divided by the population of the economy. AI. So AI can make it easier to track for GDP. Although it may seem scary to have AI keep track of GDP, knowing how much money and having track of all the money we've ever made, it would make it a lot simpler because at the end of the day, we do have really big numbers that we have to account for. So having a database that could have all these numbers accounted for by itself, and then you just go check on it, would have a lot of benefits. I feel like it could benefit the economy a lot more. It could make us a lot more productive, which is what we're trying to strive for, production. And I feel like it would be very beneficial to implement AI into GDP.